And of course, I'm coming to you first, Ian, because it's pretty much fair to say that you are the man behind hospital car parking as it stands today. You had the idea for it, really.
I had the idea, 34 years ago, car parking was free. And come 8:30, the patients, visitors could not get in. It was just totally occupied by the staff. So originally it was introduced to make way that the staff, patients could be segregated, there's room for them. But if something's free, everybody will use it. Mm-hmm. And over the years, it's had to be innovative. There's radius qualifications. If you live within a mile, then don't bring your car. Car sharing, park and ride. Car parking is really emotive. There's no perfect panacea to cure what happens, but it's the arena of car parking that has to be treated very gently.
Okay, question.
Very gently.
So when you're administering a hospital car park, when your company's organising it and everything else, is a percentage of the money going back to the NHS?
Yes.
Or does it just go to the hospital? Do you know what happens to it?
We operate sometimes on a management fee, so our fee is our fee. What we've done in certain hospitals to placate the anger, and it is, people do get annoyed. We put a pie chart of where the money goes, so much to the trust, so much to the upkeep, so much for the landscaping, apparatus, repairs. So when people realise it's not just going to an operator or to the trust, people feel more comfortable about it.
Because I felt when I first looked at it, and we spoke a lot in the green room, I got so much information from it, it was fantastic. But these are essential workers, the NHS, and they're often very poorly paid. And to be charging them just seems, do you not feel that's a bit wrong?
We don't set the tariffs in any of
But you're
the trusts
making
we
a profit
operate.
from it.
I think
business.
that's my business.
That's what business is.
But it's NHS.
If I wasn't making a profit, I don't think I'd be here today.
I know, but the NHS staff are often poorly paid. Then adding that stress of a car park fee seems...
But there's the nuances which aren't known behind it. If people are terminally ill, there's concessionary permits where they don't pay. If people are on income support, they can claim back the parking charge. It's not heavily promoted when Matron run the wards.
Yeah, we spoke about
When
this.
Matron won the wards, you came in. Now nobody takes responsibility either to communicate that information to the patient, but in a perfect world, it would be great if
What about the unsociable
I want to bring
hours?
Eve in on this because, with seniority, unfortunately, becomes more visits to hospitals and more familiarity with hospital car parks, more visits to hospitals. So I want to ask you about this one. I mean, you're obviously a practical woman of the world. You know about business. You know that it costs money to administer hospital car parks, and you know that some of the profit goes straight back into the NHS where we all desperately need it to be. How do you feel about this?
Well, one of the things I didn't really know until today was some of the profits do go back into the NHS, and frankly we can do with all the money we can get for the NHS with more expensive medicines and all the rest of it. I also think, I feel sympathy for some doctors who really work late into the night. Yes. But there's probably a possibility that if you are working on those very, very unhappy shifts where you don't finish till 6 in the morning, you probably can get into the car.
More often than not, people on the night shift, because the car parks aren't as full, they're allowed to park in proximity to getting into the hospital, trauma units. So, as I said, there's so many nuances to hospital car park. It's not you can or you can't. It's facilitating spaces for disabled, for people who come in and need to be rushed in, where payment is the last thing in their mind.
And you also mentioned the end of life, and if they're end of life,
end of life.
Yeah, because that's...
the last thing you want to be doing is
the last thing you want to do. So it's with an iron fist but a velvet glove, really.
Do you think, though, because we've got so many more people in this country, you're going to have to dig down and make car parks, like car parks are outside stores, or build up, because they are very crowded, aren't they? I mean,
they are crowded.
Who say they've got to go to the hospital, often go an hour early.
It
so
depends
that they
on the
can
location of the hospital. If you're in a central London hospital, there is no car parking, but there's no car parking, so you have to arrive by public transport. Unfortunately, they're in rural areas. That's not the case. The public transport will often let them down.
Yeah.
So you have to take a car. Hopefully there'll be eventually there'll be self-drive cars, they'll drop you off, so there'll be no revenue to be taken. They'll drop you off and drive off.
Let's go straight to the phones. I'm not surprised that the calls are coming in. Ian, you may have to square your shoulders here.
Okay.
I don't know what people are going to say in advance, but I wonder. Let's go straight to Liz in Surrey. Hello, Liz. Thank you so much for calling. What do you feel about this one?
I think NHS staff shouldn't pay. I also think that hospitals, if they have to charge for parking, that the money should go all to the hospital, whereas ours, I know it doesn't. There's only a very small amount that goes to the hospital. And I would like it all to go to the hospital, not to a parking company.
But of course, Liz, as Ian, I'm sure will explain, there are lots of charges and administration costs in just running a car park. It's not that every ticket is immediately a source of great profit, is it?
There's the fabric of the car park, there's lighting, there's electricity, there's the landscaping, there's the potholes from where cars turn, there's the equipment, the cameras.
But that's normal. That is an overhead. Most businesses all have overheads.
All businesses have overheads, certainly, but they've got to be recouped from somewhere. They pass it on with...
From the NHS staff. I think that's where Liz may be coming from.
So, Liz, do you think it's all right for patients to pay, but not staff members, or do you think nobody should?
No, I don't think patients should. Definitely not. Only a minimum charge.
And you see, if that were to happen, Liz, of course, that would mean then that the hospital was paying for it, paying for the privilege.
Money would go
out
away
of the
from
NHS budget for people to park, which I'm sure you also wouldn't want, would you?
Well, I just don't want these parking companies to get all this money when it could be going to the NHS.
The thing is, it wouldn't, would it, though?
It wouldn't.
Because if the NHS was administering and maintaining and funding, they'd be paying rather than recouping. And if they did recoup, it would be presumably less, a share of less of a profit. Let's carry on with this. Let's go to Pauline in Suffolk. Hi, Pauline. What do you think?
Hi. Well, I'm a retired nurse, and for 30 years I was paying car parking and often not finding a space if I came in on a late shift at 1 o'clock. Also, that gentleman said if you're under a mile away, you would not get the car parking space. OK, that's fine. Leave the ward at 9 p.m. at night. It's cold, it's wet. Have to be back on the ward again at 6:30 in the morning. So, I mean, this is treating people like human beings. You've got to walk home in the dark and the snow and then leave your home again at 6 in the morning in the dark, snow, wet. I just think that gentleman hasn't got a clue. He ought to spend time on a shift as an NHS nurse.
Well, I'm well aware of the shift. There is car sharing, which is adopted. There's carpools adopted by many trusts.
You're the only nurse on a late shift. You haven't got someone to share with, and they wouldn't leave the ward at the same time as you.
So I'd like to know, Pauline, were you able to discuss it with anyone in the hospital, an administrator or someone in management, and say, when I come out, it's pitch dark, I'm exhausted, I've got to be back at 6 in the morning. Can you help me with this? Were they sort of human when you approached them?
A definite no to all those questions.
Really? So what did you actually...
The whole fault of the NHS is the management of it. So
Pauline, what did you do for all those years? Then explain what it was actually like when you came out after your shift.
Well, I was a staff nurse on the ward.
Yeah.
So you'd come out and, you'd go home if you had a car parking space. And if you got back to the hospital any later than 7 a.m, you would drive around for ages looking for a space. There weren't even enough spaces. So, talk about frustration before you even start your 12-and-a-half-hour shift.
Absolutely get it, but obviously charging means there are theoretically more spaces available than if the whole thing was free.
Space is
finite. There wasn't.
I'm sorry to hear it, Pauline, and appreciate the call. Thank you very much, and all the work you did over all those decades. Let's have a chat with Jason in Merseyside. Hi, Jason. What do you reckon?
Realistically, we don't pay to actually park outside supermarkets. So realistically, we should have hospitals exactly the same. It should just be free parking outside the hospital, irrespective of whether you're staff, whether you're a patient that's going there, this, that and the other. We should adopt the same principle, because after all, you're not going to a hospital for fun, are you? And people aren't going people are doing that job. It's a very important job. So the last thing that they should be having to do is have to pay for the privilege of parking outside somewhere where it's vital for them to work to save someone's life.
Okay, let's give Ian a chance to respond to this. If hospital parking were to be completely free, both to patients and staff, who would end up paying to look after the hospital, the car parks?
The money would come away from patient care towards the upkeep of the hospital. So you'd be taking vast sums away from patient care. You know, tarmac gets damaged, lights get damaged. It all needs to be paid for. It all needs to be serviced. And just going back to the free, like, supermarket comment, actually, most supermarkets have a 2-hour free period to prevent commuter parking. And if you exceed that period, you pay for it. So it's, free parking, it's very altruistic, but very difficult to attain.
Jason, thanks so much. Let's go to Carol in Cheshire. Hi, Carol. What happened to you?
Hi, Vanessa. I used to work in the NHS. I can't tell you which hospital, but we were all working different shifts, and we did have free parking, and the patients had free parking as well, until we was having some work done, and then we had to move our cars for the chief executives. They could park free, we had to pay.
Wow.
So wrong.
Wow. Okay, so let's ask Eve about this, because you know how people keep talking these days about the optics, how something looks. I mean, how does that look?
And also earlier you had a very, very interesting woman on who said, and of course the management don't get involved. What else are they supposed to do except get involved with this?
Yes.
And allowing the chief executive the best spot in the car park. I mean, that hasn't happened since, people
it's like
with
a
large
golf club,
cigars used to turn up.
Absolutely extraordinary. Narinder, remarkable story.
I mean, Carol, that story is just like, it's unacceptable on every level. But I have to go back to Ian, because when you're saying that the upkeep of the car parks, it costs millions. But the NHS are making, we looked at it in the green room, so Sussex Hospital were making 3 million. So you're obviously making your...
our management fee.
So if they had that included, that would cover their cost, and then they've still got 3 million left. I've got my maths right here.
Except for the fact that the hospitals are not car park supervisors and maintainers and administrators. But that's exactly what that is. So that's it. So that's the story.
One other important thing to understand. More often than not, it's the trusts that set the tariffs.
Yes, okay.
We're merely instruments to collect it, to administer permits, but they set the tariff. Hence, when you gave that example, there was the Royal Shrewsbury, I noticed, which is a hospital we manage. A day there, I think, was £9.50, and a day at St George's Tooting was £30.
Wow.
I mean, that's where they've set it.
Gosh, let's go to Terry. Hi, Terry in West Sussex. What do you think, Terry?
Hello there. Well, I was taken into hospital because I've got AF, and I was talking to the nurse about parking charges and everything, and she says she has to work an hour and a half each day just to pay the parking charge, £70 a week. You might as well give them a pay rise instead. Don't pay it.
I mean,
it's disgusting.
I mean, it sounds simple. I don't know if it's simple.
No, but Terry's right. I mean, without getting to, like, nurses, we've got nurses going to food banks. We shouldn't be charged. They're helping patients.
They are.
They're looking after elderly. Look, the majority of people in the NHS hospital are pensioners. They're looking after pensioners, and we're charging them for the privilege.
Right, let's move on, because I don't know whether anybody will ever meet in the middle on this one, especially when they're just about to have to pay to park in a hospital. I thought we were going to get some really great calls about I suddenly went into labour in the car park, so I forgot to pay my ticket, and then they charged me. It was really... I wanted to hear that story, oh dear. Anyway...